All right, everybody. Welcome to the ConsumerFi podcast. I'm pleased to have Steve Kramer. He's the VP of Product with PayNearMe. Steve, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Joel. Great to be here.
So, PayNearMe, this is from a personal standpoint, and I want to get into, Steve, some of your background, but I'll tell you, PayNearMe is a solution that when I was a lender, I didn't go for it. And I actually have a little bit of trauma because of it. Cause I think it really would have helped. And that's why I'm excited to have you on today. But Steve, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and maybe the overview of PayNearMe for those who don't know? I think there's only few, but maybe give us the overview. Yeah.
Yeah, no, happy to. I'll talk more about PayNearMe because it's more interesting than talking about me. But yeah, no, I've been around in the payment space for more years than I care to mention. 25 plus years in the payment space. Actually began my career, believe it or not, programming. I was a computer science guy. I was programming, realized, you know what, I like this product side better. And I kind of bounced in my career back and forth between technology and product. And finally kind of settled on product a number of years ago. Really enjoy it. So I've been doing that, worked for a lot of the big legacy providers out there and joined PayNearMe about 3 years ago. PayNearMe, we like to call it a payments experience management company. It's kind of a new term, right? But it really is not just focused on the payment, but the payment and everything around it, if you think about it, right? So whether that's dealing with consumer acceptance, consumer engagement, operating costs, and operational efficiencies that all wrap around the payment itself. So really kind of taking a different look at payments. We're an interesting company. We've been around 12 years. We like to call ourselves a 12-year-old startup, if you will. Cut our teeth in cash bill payment. So, the ability to walk into a 7-Eleven, a CVS, now a Walmart, walk up and at many of these locations, you can pay right in line, right? You scan your milk, scan your bread, scan your barcode for your bill, pay it all, you walk out, you're done. Really seamless. And then about 4+ years ago, we started introducing our electronic payment offerings. So, card, ACH, Apple Pay, Google Pay, all of that stuff. And so now trying to wrap the entire experience together for our billers. And we also work in the gaming space, in the iGaming space. So that's quick great background on me and PayNearMe.
And we've seen payments move so much in the recent past. There's so many of new mechanisms. Digital currency is the currency as far as I'm concerned. I think that the Fed is probably looking at ways to remove the burden of having to produce physical money. I think this is a great space to be in, Steve. So, what we want to get into on this one, and we're going to have a couple of episodes, which I'm so pleased to do because I like to be able to tell a story. And so Steve's going to start with us and then we're going to finish with one of his associates, Ann. But let's talk about, why do we bother focusing on digitizing the payments experience?
Yeah, great way to start, right? And first of all, I want to completely agree with you on I love being in payments. I have, I'm a certified payments geek. Like I can talk payments all day and love doing it. And it's changing so quickly. And that I think is what's fun about it, right? Just when you think you got it figured out, something comes along like a pandemic and changes even the way you're thinking about it, right?
Right.
And so you even take that and digitizing payments. So, we've been all about digitizing payments for years. Again, in the, PayNearMe startup, we were about digitizing cash, and now we're about digitizing the whole solution. And I think actually, one of the strange side effects of COVID and the pandemic, I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to, oh my gosh, yeah, you really do need to digitize this. There's so many positives to doing it. We have stories there of some of our lenders that we work with that, for example, they used to allow people to come into their stores and pay in cash, people with cash consumer who suddenly went, we can't have people in our stores anymore. Like our stores are closed. What do we do? Right. And they suddenly realized that, wait, we need to digitize this solution. And that's where we actually were able to help and step in. And there are others out there that do it too. Right. But saying, why don't you go somewhere where they're already going? They're already going to Walmart. Just go there and pay in cash. And so you start looking at this, right, of how do you start digitizing? What steps do you take? And whether you're a small lender, a big lender, whoever, can you take some kind of small steps to at least get some quick wins there?
Yeah, and
right?
interestingly, I did some projects when I had my auto finance company, and making the move to digital it doesn't have to be completely daunting. So when you're small, you have some nimble nature. I had collectors, right? So I had maybe 30 people that were hitting the phones. So I just said, okay, we're starting the month. We're going with the digital payment platform. I want you, when you do demos, when you get in touch with every customer, I want you to tell them about this and get them to do something like download the app or this or that. And so even though my systems, like I didn't have to do a major change transformation in order to make this happen. I just had to have them advertise this thing and entice the consumers into taking it down because it was going to ultimately make their lives better. Right.
Um,
That was not that hard for a small company. You think of these things as being very daunting, big, hairy projects, right? It doesn't have to
yeah.
be.
Yeah, you can take some small steps and have some major impacts. I mean, it sounds like you were maybe even a little ahead of your game, right? You're on the, but because we talked to a lot of lenders, and especially the small lenders, about that. Yeah, you've got a call center, you're set up for a call center. And what I talk about all the time, right, is I've got my call center, it's set up, it's running. Steve Kramer calls in to make a payment. Steve Kramer pays every month. Good payer. We have no issues with him. Look, I don't want to talk to him at the call center.
Yeah,
Teach him
exactly.
to self-serve, right? Like,
Yeah,
he's a good customer. I want my call center agents focused where I need them focused
right.
on challenged customers, on making new sales, on working with new consumers. The person who makes the payment every month, yeah, let's teach them what they can do to self-serve and show them the power there, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And there are some really simple steps, as you said, like they're very easy ways. Show them the app. Like, here, look, you can download here. Show them the website. Hey, do you see right? Thanks for calling in to make your payment. You see right here, you can just pay online yourself. You don't
Right.
need to talk to me.
Right.
And we've even taken it a step further where we said, you know what? Why doesn't your agent have the ability to just push straight to the user?
Right.
Hi, Mr. Kennedy, thanks for calling. You want to make your payment? Hey, I know are you in front of your computer, or I notice you're on your cell phone. I'm just going to send you a link. Here, got it? Click on that. See how you can make your payment yourself. Teach that consumer right there, right? Go ahead and self-serve. And now you've got them, right? Now you're like, see how easy that was? That was great. You didn't have to call me. Next month, you can just do that all yourself. And now you pulled that consumer out of the call center.
So it's really interesting that, I remember the old PayNearMe was hey, I'm converting the cash to digital. I'm going to go and make that cash payment at one of the outlets that you were partnered with, to now this full digital text to phone type stuff. Can I zero in on that text payment to phone feature? So that was something that I was looking at a couple of years ago, and I was told it's kind of like dying, right? Like there's apps that are going to supplant that. Are you seeing the same thing within, or do you still see it as being relevant? Because in my mind, I feel like it's relevant because I think people have hit me with a couple of those out of convenience in the recent past, and I like it.
Yeah, look, it's still relevant. It's so funny. Every time there's a prediction, right, of that's going away and you're not going to see that anymore, and you always see it come right back again. I mean, QR codes would be a great example. We can talk about that a little bit later on the podcast, right? Like, who would have thought QR codes would be a thing? And now they're back to being everywhere again, right? But no, absolutely, we see that the texting and pay by text and the ability to receive a text, absolutely, as still very valuable, very, very viable. I mean, there's great studies out there that talk about reaching consumers, right? And how do you want to reach your consumers? And look, you're going to try and call them. People aren't picking up their phones anymore. It's caller ID. They're not going to pick up that call. You can email them. No, especially younger consumers, they're not reading email, right? Their email's way too slow. So text is one way. I mean, it's just one method of reaching them. And that's when we talk about, like, you have to think about the payments experience, right? So text is one way, but there are others too. So for example, a consumer who lives on their iPhone, right? That's it. They're an iPhone guy, they're living on their iPhone all day. Well, why don't you push out to their Apple Wallet? Right. And now you've got that consumer where they live right now. So texting is one method. It can be very, very productive and can certainly work, but you've got to make sure you wrap the whole experience in, right? You're an Apple person. Great. We'll push to your Apple Wallet. You'll get your notification right on your phone, just like you get a text notification. Yeah. And look, we've seen the results. Like when we've done this push to text, push to Apple Wallet, notifications out, we've seen clients cut their call center volume in half just from doing simple things like that. And again, let those agents focus where they need to be focused.
Yeah. Do you see a difference with larger lenders and the adoption curve or challenges that they may face that would be unique from a smaller lender that has that flexibility? Because that's my frame of reference. So I wonder about a big organization.
Yeah, there are, right? There are certainly different challenges at different organizations. A lot of them are similar, right? Even at the big organizations, they'd like to reduce call center volume, right? Let me pull those consumers out. But there, it really is, how do I get more, what you call straight through processing, right? How do I turn everything digital? Because,
right.
If you're a small vendor and you're getting a few percent exceptions, you can handle that in-house. But when you're large, that few percent starts to become a very large number, right?
Well, and the key is, you mentioned the word exception, and that just rings a bell in my head saying, if there's anybody that's not on this clean path, I definitely want to talk to them, because it infers that there's some issue, right? I can't make that streamlined, easy digital payment. That tells me I have to talk to you, right?
Right, exactly.
Which is what I want.
Yeah. Well, it is and it isn't, right? So you're right. If there are exceptions, you usually want to talk to that person. But you can actually, and we can talk about this more later on, right? You can actually start working that into your straight through processing as well.
Right.
Let's say you've got a customer who they've paid you several months in a row with ACH, and you've gotten a return every single month, right? Like, so yeah, you may want to talk to that customer and say, look, hey, Joel, I need a better payment method from you, right? Because ACH then clearly isn't working out. Or you can actually configure that and go, you know what, maybe after 2 or 3 in a row, or 2 or 3 in a 6-month period, I'm just not going to let them pay with ACH. I'm just going to throw them to debit and get a better payment method.
Can you lock that down in the system where you're like, hey, cool. if there's a rule, if the customer goes NSF on a certain payment vehicle 3 times, it alerts the agent or something, right?
Absolutely. So that's how it should work, right? Where it locks the consumer down. If the consumer calls the agent, and says, look, I didn't have a job, now I do, or there's something going on in their life that's changed, maybe you let the agent override it and go, oh, okay, we're going to turn ACH, but, give that flexibility on both sides, right? So that, again, trying to get rid of, as you said, I think I saw you shudder when I said the word exceptions, right? But any large lender, that's a big problem.
Well, but the way you said it, I mean, I pictured doing a Pareto chart of the different types of exceptions that come in, and it's always plays out. Whenever I do a Pareto chart, it's always 80-20 rule, and there's always some one thing that people are doing. So then you eliminate it, and then your call volume drops by 80%.
Right, and you know what?
Hopefully push them onto that rail.
And the other difference that we've seen, and it's both small versus large lenders, and it's also lenders depending on where you're playing in the subprime space, right? So for some larger lenders, they're saying, you know what, I need to cut down for example, my ACH return volume. I need those return numbers lower because every one of those is causes us pain internally. Whereas small lenders go, you know what, I might want to take a little more risk, especially maybe end of month, 15th of the month, depending on their due date. So let me turn that knob a little bit the other way. I'm willing to accept a few more ACH returns because I want those additional payments in. So you need to be able to be, configurable in that regard, right? And balance it.
Yeah. And that's something that non-prime auto folks definitely know, because you're always balancing between, do I accelerate this account and move it more towards a recovery, or do I try to kind of work with them? Maybe they are responsive, but it's just their payment performance has been poor. You have some re-underwriting essentially to do. Steve, we talked about the big transformations, the small transformations. Maybe we should just kind of ratchet that back. You came up with a really cool model for our conversation, which is helpful, about maybe not going full digital transformation, but then you threw out this term, digital exploration. What do you mean by digital exploration versus transformation?
So digital exploration really, when starting to, when someone's thinking about how am I going to do this, right? And a lot of it is you sit back and it's like, wow, this is really daunting. And right. What I like to say is, I'm sure, because everybody has tons of IT resources just sitting around looking for work, right? Yeah, no, not exactly. Right? Everyone's got a roadmap that's 2 years long, and they're like, well, that sounds great in 2023, but as you and I were joking at the beginning of the podcast, payments moves too fast, right? Yeah. It's often funny when you see, especially some of the legacies or even, quite frankly, some of the large banks, and they go, yeah, we've got a 2 or 3 year roadmap. And I scratch my head and I go, in payments? Like, I wish I had a crystal ball that I could predict that accurately what's going to happen in 2 or you need to be more nimble than that. So it's about starting to look at, with constrained resources that we all have, right? Where can I get some big wins? Where can I just focus to say, you know what, let's shoot for that little area. Is there a partner out there that can help me get there where I don't have to invest as much IT resources? And look, can I use your 80-20 rule and go, 80% of my pain is right here, but it's only in this small focused area. Let's focus there and try and get a win. And you know what? One of the cases we've seen it is just that first payment, right? Yeah. If I can get that customer to that first payment digitally, yes, what a win, right?
So what comes in with that doesn't come in with the others? I'm thinking obviously coaching, a little bit of hand holding, maybe a little bit of education, right?
Yep, absolutely. All of that. Even in the coaching, you can start working in what helps the business out and helps the consumer out. We've seen this before, right? Hey, wouldn't you like to pay online? And some of the common complaints you hear about people paying online is, well, I forget my due date, I'm busy, whatever. Hey, no problem. Why don't we opt you in for alerts and updates? So that way we can remind you when your payment's due right on your phone. Yeah. And that way you don't have to worry about forgetting about it. I mean, just simple stuff like that to set them up and go, wouldn't that be great if I could opt you in right now? Hey, look, we've even seen big successes at lenders where they go, why don't we opt you in straight for auto pay right at the beginning? I mean, that's the big win, right?
That's a good one. And look, I'm old school. I like to pay off of a physical bill. I just have a process from when I was young, right? So I would just get all my bills stacked and I'd leave them on a place on my desk and I would work through them on Saturday morning very casually because then I would also do my financials. And it's a process and a method that works for me. Steve, how many of my vendors do you think have missed mailing me paper bills over the years?
Yeah, exactly.
Too many to count. So yeah. I'm able to call them and say, hey, you missed, and they work with me. But if I wasn't so darn stubborn and I would just go with an automated version, and that's kind of where I went. So now my bank says for the bill pay where I push, I don't want you pulling, I want to push. Like I said, I have my things, but I saw that my bank says, well, we're linked up with them for e-commerce, right? Mm-hmm. So we can just get you the bills here and they'll show up in the interface. And I think okay, it's at my bank, it's in the interface. I'm not going to lose it in the shuffle when you send me some email that goes into spam, right?
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of look, U.S. Postal Service has serious issues right now getting the mail out and even on time. I think you have to look at these things as almost hedge strategies to make sure that your money keeps flowing, right?
Absolutely. It's also, it's understanding that people have a process. You have yours of the stack of it, and a lot of people have that process. So how do you say, hey, that process is great, but hey, Joe, what happens when you're on the road for a week or two? You're not in front of your desk, right? Or, suddenly you miss a paper and your bill is due. Like, how can we work with you to establish a process that maybe is a backup to that? I'm getting that reminder by text. And one of the things that I think a lot of people miss on is it doesn't have to be a one-time thing, right? So we could send you a reminder, a week ahead of time that says, hey, Joel, your bill's coming up in 7 days. And then maybe there's another reminder a day before. It says, hey, Joel, it's due tomorrow. Or maybe even one that says, hey, it's due today. And look, you could send a third one 3 or 4 days later, a week after, that says, you seem to have missed a payment, right? And maybe and those messages can be a little different, right? Maybe the one that's a little bit after is a little bit firmer, not quite as friendly. Obviously, You don't want to spam the person, right? But just something that says, hey, did you miss a payment? Here's where you can do it so easily. To try and get people, as you said, you missed your statement, you weren't home, whatever. What can you do to get that consumer back in, right? Because it's so, once you have them in, and look, the other thing that we talk about a lot in this kind of digital exploration, that person makes that first payment. Great, right? They did it, hopefully digitally, right? Or maybe with an agent, whatever. They made that payment, which means they have some kind of payment method in front of them, whether it's their bank, whether it's their card, whether it's their bank account numbers or Apple Pay, whatever. Now is the time to capture them for auto pay, right? Yeah. Hey, Joel, you just made that payment. You still have your debit card in front of you? Why don't we sign you up for auto pay? You never have to worry about this.
Yeah.
And you've got your card in front of you. Like, now is the time to get them. So if you can get that first payment and get that first experience locked in, boy, what a huge quick win that is, right?
In terms of strengthening that ongoing payment stream, and in particular using, a digital platform such as yours, do you find that some lenders have a philosophy around incenting that or gamifying it, right? Saying, hey, if you make like 3 on-time payments on the PayNearMe platform, we're going to give you $20 off your next scheduled payment or something like that.
Yeah, it's obviously, as you know, right, a little harder in lending to do those kind of incentives just because of APRs and all of that. But I've seen people attempt that. It's an interesting challenge, right, to try and figure out what incents a consumer.
Yeah.
And we could probably have a whole podcast. I think about Apple Pay and Google Pay myself, right? So look, I'm a certified payments geek. I try them all, right? I'll pay any method, anytime, any place, because I want to see how they all work.
Right.
And I go to a store that accepts, and I'm a Google person, that accepts Google Pay. 9 times out of 10, I forget. I reach into my wallet, I pull out my debit card, I put it in the machine, and afterwards I'm like, I should have paid with my, right? And why? It's my habit. And there's no incentive to using the Google Pay or Apple Pay at a store for me. So I just forget and I do it. And you've got the same thing, you're right, with bill pay. Like, how do you incent the consumer? So I don't know that it really can be gamified. I mean, I think there are interesting options there. I think where we've seen it more is more of a customer satisfaction thing, right?
Yeah.
Look, so you didn't have to worry about it. You're on time. You don't have to worry about an on-time payment. You're going to get reminders. You're going to get told exactly how much you pay, when you pay it. So it's all in front of you. Yeah. So really trying to, instead of gamify it for the consumer, really just try and show the benefits to the consumer of what they're getting out of this.
That's great. I mean, and I love to strengthen those payment streams, but let's be real. In non-prime auto, you're going to have some percentage, maybe 1 in 5, maybe even a little more, that are not going to go full term and end up, you're going to have to recover that piece of collateral. So
yeah.
You mentioned a little bit about kind of rescues and repos and how the tool can be or a digital kind of payments platform can be helpful. Can you talk a little bit about that, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously, first of all, the goal, right, is to make sure they don't get there. They don't get into repo and rescue, right? And one of the things there is making sure, we saw a lot in our research about people saying just keeping track of what I owe and keeping track of due dates is hard. And the other piece, and one of the real resistors to online payments is, and that darned username and password. Like, I don't remember. People hopefully are using password managers, but no, they're probably writing it down somewhere and forgetting it and all of that, right?
Right.
So what can you do that gets rid of that friction? Hey, why don't we just send you a customized text that you can click on and you don't have to worry about a login and password? Let's keep you out of Rescue and Repo by trying to send you those reminders, maybe, as I said, 7 days after, 30 days after. Here's your reminder. Here's your link. You don't have to log in. You can just pay right now, right? So I think what we like to say is the best way to deal with rescues and repos is not let the customer get there. But of course, as you said, there's still a percentage that are going to get there, right? And you're going to need to take some kind of action. So,
and there's something so not offensive about getting a text message. I can't quite put my finger on it, but if I see an email or something that kind of jars me, it's like, hey, I'm confronting reality. I have a financial situation that I'm behind on. Right. I don't know. Just the brevity of the text message seems to me to be a little bit more comforting. Like it's almost like a little bit impersonal, but in a way that keeps me from getting personal with the issue. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. Especially if you're near that rescue area. If you're delinquent to a degree, a lot of those consumers, they don't want to talk. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to have to talk to you on the phone. So if you can send me something that I can kind of self-rescue, if you will, and I can then do it without having to talk to someone and be better, hey, great. Like, so much the better there. And also, can you then digitize that experience? If someone's in a true delinquent state, right? They're 60 days past due. They've had trouble in the past. You're probably not going to want to take an ACH from them. But you know what? Can I push you to debit card with just a link that you don't have to worry about? Or can I go all the way and go, you're going to need to make a cash payment, but hey, do you live near a Walmart? Great. Why don't you just go in there? Here's a code. Just make a cash payment. You're done. You can be out, and we can kind of rescue you back. So kind of that ability to help drive that consumer. And I think you're right. Make it less personal. Make it let the consumer self-serve and rescue themselves, if you will. And then the final thing, right, is, and you and I joked about this actually even before we started, right, is how configurable is the system? Like, if your system is that cookie cutter system, nope, this person's 60 days, they're done. They're out.
Yeah.
There may be other aspects of that consumer that you want to look at. Do they have good payments in the past, right? Are they near payoff, right? And can the system understand that and say, hey, look, Joel's 60 days past, we want him going here. Kramer's 60 days past, but we may want to treat him differently.
Yeah.
So can you configure things that you can, we can go one way and not go another? We've seen with one, for example, that, we had a merchant. This is a little bit different than Rescue and Repo, but they were concerned because they were having some fraud issues where people were paying off the full amount all at once, getting their title, and then charging it back or having an ACH return.
Yeah.
And they said, this isn't working for us. And when they moved over to our platform, they said, this is one of our challenges. How can we work together to solve it? And what we did was we worked on a business rule that says, you know what? If you're trying to pay your payoff amount and it's more than like X times your normal monthly payment amounts, so it looks kind of suspicious, the system's going to flag that and go, hey, Joel, you know what? We're not going to let you make that payment unless you talk to an agent who wants to confirm exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it really helped them in terms of kind of driving down that fraud that they were having.
That's a big deal. Not just with those, even with dealer checks, it can be an issue. I do like having the ability to flag those and run them up. There's so, like you said, it's fraud. It's at the end of the day, it's fraud. If you are making that payment, knowing full well you're going to reverse it, we don't need the anglerfish on here to confirm that's fraud, right?
That's fraud, right? And if you see, I said, if it's their regular monthly payment amount and it's the payoff amount, that's probably not fraud. That's probably a good payment. Let's go. If it's 3 or 4 times the monthly payment amount and it's a payoff, maybe we want to talk to that person first and not let them on. So can you configure the system to let them do that, right? And then look, the other thing, and this is, I think, really interesting, especially when you deal with younger consumers, is the real-time nature, right? Look, you're on a repo. The worst thing they can do is take a payment and then actually repo the vehicle. Right, that's a terrible thing, right? You've now taken the payment, you pulled it out of repo, and yet the truck wasn't pulled off the road or the truck was sent out
big
anyway.
Deal. It's a big deal.
And a lot of that happens because, right, I paid today on a Wednesday, but I didn't get notified until Wednesday night or Thursday. It has to be real time, right? There has to be that real time connection. It was very funny talking to some folks in the payments industry early on. Talking about real-time payments. They're like, yeah, real-time payments is going to be great. And look, I'm a big believer in real-time payments. But I said, guys, you don't understand. There's a generation coming up that's an expectation from them that everything is real-time. They're the PayPal Venmo generation. Yeah. Absolutely. When I'm a PayPal consumer and I'm the 20-something PayPal consumer and I send money to Joel, he gets it instantly. Now, look, we're in the payment space. Does he actually get the money instantly? No, of course not. It's in his PayPal wallet. He has to, but to them, that's an instant payment. So it better be the same when I'm paying my auto loan. If it's not the same, I don't have a satisfied consumer on the phone, right? What do you mean it's not real time? Everything's real time.
Yeah. That's what I like about cryptocurrencies, and I'll save that. We're just about at time, but like I said, we're doing a couple of episodes here, and our next one, Steve, I'm excited to take the conversation to the next step. So we talked a little bit about, and I'm gonna use your exact word, and I'm gonna refer to my notes here. Digital exploration. Mm-hmm. We've covered that. You gave us a nice little pathway, whether you're a small or a large business, to kind of get there. And I love the tangible nature of it. It's very basic. Next episode, we're going to get into moving from digital exploration to digital integration.
Yeah. But what we like to say is really going all in on digital, right? How do you, I've got my quick wins. I was able to solve a few immediate business needs, but now let's go all the way. Let's try and digitize as much as we possibly can and really streamline that process.
Yeah, baby. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this one up. Steve, thank you so much. Steve Kramer, the VP of Product at PayNearMe. Steve, thanks so much for being on the episode, and excited to get into the next one with you.
Joel, thanks for having you. Looking forward to it.